The restaurant glowed with soft golden light, the kind that makes everything feel warm and safe. I sat across from Mark, my husband of 5 years, at a small round table covered with a crisp white cloth. The clink of glasses and low hum of voices filled the air, but all I could focus on was him. His smile, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, made my heart flutter like it did when we first met. Tonight was our anniversary, and I'd been planning this moment for weeks. Everything had to be perfect. I smoothed the hem of my red dress, the one Mark always said made me look like a movie star. My hands trembled a little, not from nerves, but from excitement. I'd tucked a small velvet box in my purse, a surprise for him. A watch I'd saved up for months to buy. It wasn't just any watch. It was engraved with our initials and the date we got married. I wanted tonight to be a memory we'd talk about forever. "You look beautiful," Mark said, leaning forward. His voice was soft, like he was sharing a secret just for me. He reached across the table and took my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. 5 years, Sarah. Can you believe it? I grinned, squeezing his hand back. Feels like yesterday we were dancing at our wedding, doesn't it? He chuckled, his eyes sparkling under the chandelier light. Yeah, and you stepped on my toes at least 10 times. Hey, I laughed, swatting his arm playfully. I got better by the end. The waiter arrived with our food. Steak for Mark, pasta, with creamy sauce for me. The plates smelled amazing, and my stomach growled. I hadn't eaten all day, too busy making sure every detail was right. I'd booked this restaurant because it was where we had our first date. The same corner table, the same view of the city lights twinkling outside the window. I wanted to remind us both how far we'd come. As we ate, we talked about old memories. The time we got lost on a road trip and ended up at a diner with the best pie we'd ever tasted. The night we stayed up until sunrise, painting our first apartment. Every story made me feel closer to him, like we were building something unbreakable. I kept glancing at my purse, thinking about the watch. I couldn't wait to see his face when he opened it. Remember when we said we'd travel the world one day? Mark said, cutting into his steak. Paris, Rome, all those places. We will, I said, my voice firm. We're still young. We've got time. He nodded, but his smile faltered for a second. It was so quick, I almost missed it. His eyes flicked to his phone, which he'd placed face down on the table. It buzzed softly, and he glanced at it but didn't pick it up. I frowned, a tiny knot forming in my chest. He'd been checking his phone a lot lately, always saying it was work. I pushed the thought away. Tonight was about us. Let's make a toast, I said, raising my wine glass. The red liquid caught the light, glowing like a ruby. To us. To 5 years and 1,000,000 more. Mark lifted his glass, his eyes locking with mine. To us, he echoed. But his voice sounded a little off, like he was distracted. I told myself I was imagining things. This was our night. Nothing could ruin it. We clinked glasses and I took a sip, the wine warm and smooth. I reached into my purse, my fingers brushing the velvet box. My heart raced. Mark, I got you something, I said, pulling out the box and sliding it across the table. His eyebrows shot up. What's this? He opened it, revealing the silver watch, gleaming against the black velvet. He ran his fingers over the engraving, his name and mine intertwined with the date. For a moment, He looked stunned, like he didn't know what to say. "Do you like it?" I asked, leaning forward. My voice was soft, almost shy. I wanted him to love it as much as I did. "It's incredible," he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. He closed the box and set it beside his plate. "You didn't have to do this, Sarah." "I wanted to," I said, trying to ignore the sting of his reaction. I'd expected him to be thrilled, maybe even tear up a little. Instead, he looked uncomfortable. I forced a smile. "Put it on later. It'll look great on you." He nodded, taking a long sip of his wine. His phone buzzed again, and this time he flipped it over quickly, like he didn't want me to see the screen. That knot in my chest tightened. I opened my mouth to ask about it, but he spoke first. "I got you something too," he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. My heart lifted. Maybe I was overthinking things. He pulled out a small envelope and handed it to me. "Open it." I tore it open, expecting a sweet note or maybe tickets to a show. Instead, it was a single sheet of paper folded neatly. I unfolded it, my eyes scanning the words. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a love letter. It wasn't tickets. It was a reservation confirmation for a weekend getaway. For two. But the name next to his wasn't mine. "Mark," I said, my voice shaking. "Who's Emily?" His face went pale, and the restaurant seemed to fade away. The golden light, the clinking glasses, the warmth, it all vanished. My world tilted, and I gripped the table to steady myself. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The truth was written all over his face, and it felt like a knife twisting in my heart. This was supposed to be our perfect anniversary, but in that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same. The morning after our anniversary dinner, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest. The sun slipped through the curtains, painting stripes of light across the bedroom, but it didn't feel warm. It felt cold, like the air was holding its breath. Mark was already gone, his side of the bed empty, the sheets barely wrinkled. He'd said he had an early meeting, but that was hours ago. My eyes drifted to the velvet box with the watch I'd given him last night, sitting untouched on his nightstand. He hadn't worn it. That stung more than I wanted to admit. I sat up, rubbing my face, trying to shake off the memory of that paper in the envelope. The getaway reservation for him and someone named Emily. He'd stammered when I asked about it, saying it was a mix-up, a surprise for us that got printed wrong. His words were quick, his smile tight, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. I wanted to believe him. I'd spent 5 years believing him, but that name, Emily, kept echoing in my head like a warning bell. I got dressed, pulling on jeans and a sweater, and made coffee in the kitchen. The house was too quiet. No hum of Mark's voice on a work call, no clatter of him making breakfast like he used to. I checked my phone, hoping for a text from him. Something to ease the knot in my stomach. Nothing. Just a notification from our shared calendar. Mark. Out of town. Back Sunday. My heart sank. He hadn't mentioned a trip. I opened my laptop, telling myself I was just checking emails, but my fingers moved on their own, pulling up his social media. I didn't usually snoop. Trust was our thing. But something felt off. His profile was the same as always. Pictures of us hiking, smiling at family dinners, him in a suit at some work event. But then I saw it. A new follower, someone named Emily Carter. Her profile picture showed a woman with long dark hair laughing at a beach. My stomach twisted. Was this her? I clicked on her page, my hands shaky. She'd posted a photo yesterday, a selfie with a glass of wine, captioned, "Celebrating something special." The timestamp was from last night, around the time we were at dinner. My mind raced. Was she at the same restaurant? Was she the reason his phone kept buzzing? I shook my head, trying to stop the thoughts. I was being paranoid. But the doubt was like a splinter, small but impossible to ignore. The front door clicked open and I slammed my laptop shut. Mark walked in, carrying a paper bag from the bakery down the street. His smile was bright, too bright, like he was trying to cover something up. "Hey, Sarah," he said, setting the bag on the counter. "Got your favorite, blueberry muffins." "Thanks," I said, my voice flat. I watched him move around the kitchen, pouring coffee like everything was normal. But it wasn't. His phone was in his pocket now, not on the counter like usual. I couldn't stop staring at it, wondering what he was hiding. "You okay?" he asked, glancing at me as he opened the bag. "You seem quiet." I took a deep breath, my fingers gripping my mug. "You didn't wear the watch," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Did you not like it?" His hand froze mid-motion, and for a split second his face tightened. Then he laughed, a little too loud. "No, I love it. Just didn't want to scratch it at work. You know how clumsy I am." I nodded. But the excuse felt thin. He wasn't clumsy. He was careful. Always had been. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness matching the feeling in my chest. "You're going out of town?" I asked, keeping my eyes on him. He paused, then nodded, pulling a muffin from the bag. "Yeah, last-minute work thing, just until Sunday, boring stuff." "Where?" I pressed, my voice steady but my heart pounding. "Chicago," he said quickly. "Client meeting, you know how it is." I didn't know. He hadn't mentioned any clients in Chicago before. I wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I forced a smile. "Okay, safe trip." He leaned over and kissed my forehead, his lips warm but quick. "Thanks, babe. I'll call you when I land." As he grabbed his keys and headed for the door, I noticed his suitcase by the couch. It was the small one he used for short trips, but something about it caught my eye. A tag hanging from the handle. Bright blue, not one I'd seen before. My stomach churned. I waited until the door clicked shut behind him, then walked over to the suitcase. My fingers hesitated, but I unzipped it just enough to peek inside. There was a shirt I didn't recognize, a dark blue button-up, neatly folded. It wasn't his style, too flashy. And there, tucked in the side pocket, was a small bottle of perfume. Not mine. The label read Lilac Bloom, a scent I'd never wear. My hand shook as I zipped the bag back up and stepped away, my breath coming fast. I sank onto the couch, staring at the suitcase like it was a bomb. Emily, the reservation, the phone buzzing, the trip he didn't tell me about. The pieces were starting to fit together, and I hated the picture they made. I wanted to call him, scream, demand the truth. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to know more. I needed to be sure. I grabbed my phone and opened Emily's profile again. There was a new story posted. An airport sign, Chicago O'Hare, with a heart emoji. My blood ran cold. The doubt wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a scream. I stood in the middle of our living room, my phone shaking in my hand. The screen glowed with Emily's latest post, a photo of her and Mark at a Chicago rooftop bar. his arm around her, both of them smiling, like they didn't have a care in the world. The timestamp said it was taken an hour ago. My chest felt like it was caving in, each breath sharp and heavy. He'd lied about the work trip. He'd lied about everything. The house was quiet. Too quiet, like it was holding its breath with me. I'd spent the day digging, piecing things together. After finding that perfume in his suitcase, I couldn't stop. I checked our bank account. There were charges for dinners, hotels, even a jewelry store, all in Chicago, all from the past few months. I found emails on his laptop, ones he thought he'd deleted, from an address I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you," one said, signed with a heart and an E. Every clue was a punch to the gut, but that photo was the final blow. Mark wasn't just cheating, he was living a whole other life. I dropped onto the couch, my legs too weak to hold me. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. Not yet. I kept staring at the photo, zooming in on his face. That smile, he used to save it for me. 5 years of marriage, countless promises, and now this. I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. The late nights, the locked phone, the way he'd pull away when I tried to hug him. It was all there, screaming the truth, but I'd ignored it, clinging to the idea of us. The front door clicked open and my heart stopped. Mark wasn't supposed to be back until tomorrow. I heard his footsteps, the familiar shuffle of his sneakers on the hardwood. "Sarah," he called, his voice light, like nothing was wrong. "You home?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was tight, like someone was squeezing it. He walked into the living room, his jacket slung over his shoulder, a takeout bag in his hand. He saw me on the couch, phone in hand, and his smile froze. His eyes flicked to the screen, and I knew he knew. "Hey," he said, setting the bag down slowly, like he was approaching a wild animal. "What's going on? You look upset." I held up the phone, the photo of him and Emily, glaring back at us. "Who is she, Mark?" My voice was low, steady, but inside I was shaking. "And don't lie to me again." His face went pale, like the blood drained out of him. He opened his mouth, then closed it, his eyes darting to the floor. "It's not what you think," he started. But his voice cracked, giving him away. "Not what I think." I stood up, my hands clenched into fists. "You're in Chicago with her, smiling, while I'm here thinking you're at a work meeting. You lied about the trip, the reservation, everything. I saw the emails, Mark. I saw the charges. How long has this been going on?" He ran a hand through his hair, pacing a step. "Sarah, listen. I didn't mean for..." "How long?" I snapped, my voice cutting through his. The room felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. He sighed, his shoulders slumping. "A year," he said finally. So quiet I almost didn't hear it. It started a year ago. A year. A whole year of lies. Of him slipping away while I planned anniversaries and bought him gifts. My knees buckled, but I caught myself on the arm of the couch. "A year," I repeated, my voice hollow. "You've been with her for a year," and I was too blind to see it. "It's not like that," he said, stepping closer. I backed away, and he stopped, his hands raised like he was trying to calm me. "I didn't mean to hurt you. Emily, she's just someone I met at work. It wasn't supposed to get serious." "Serious?" I laughed, but it sounded bitter, sharp. "You're taking her to hotels, buying her jewelry, posing for pictures like you're in love. That's serious, Mark. He looked away, his jaw tight. I was going to tell you, he said. I didn't know how. I still love you, Sarah. I do. Don't, I said, my voice shaking now. Don't say that. You don't love me. You don't lie to someone you love for a year. You don't sneak around making a fool of them. I felt the tears coming, hot and heavy, but I swallowed them down. I wouldn't let him see me break. Sarah, please, he said, his voice desperate. We can fix this. I'll end it with her. I swear I shook my head, the photo still burning in my mind. You can't fix this, I said. You broke us. You broke me. I tossed the phone onto the couch, the screen still glowing with their smiling faces. Get out! He blinked, like he didn't understand. What? Get out! I said again louder. Take your stuff and go. I don't want you here. He stood there, frozen, like he thought I'd change my mind. But I wouldn't. Not after this. He grabbed his jacket, his face a mix of guilt and panic, and walked to the door. I'm sorry, he mumbled, but the words felt empty, like ash. The door shut behind him, and the silence hit me like a wave. I sank to the floor, my back against the couch, and stared at the takeout bag he'd left behind. My heart ached, raw and torn, but something else stirred inside me. A spark of anger, sharp and alive. He thought he could shatter my world and walk away. But he didn't know me. Not the real me. Not yet. I sat on the living room floor, my back against the couch, staring at the front door Mark had just walked out of. The house was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat, fast and uneven. The takeout bag he'd left on the counter smelled faintly of fried rice, but it turned my stomach. My phone lay on the couch, the photo of Mark and Emily still glowing on the screen like a knife left out to taunt me. A year. He'd been lying for a year. The truth felt like a weight, crushing my chest, and for the first time since I saw that picture, I let the tears come. They started slow, hot streaks down my cheeks, but soon I was sobbing, my hands covering my face. Every memory of us, our wedding, our late-night talks, the way he'd kiss my forehead, felt like a lie now. I'd trusted him completely, built my whole world around him, and he'd torn it apart. I pictured him with her laughing, holding her the way he used to hold me, and it hurt so bad I could barely breathe. I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I could do was cry. The living room looked the same as always. Our photos on the wall, the blanket we'd bought together draped over the armchair. But it felt like a stranger's house. Everything I thought I knew was gone. I pulled my knees to my chest, trying to hold myself together, but the tears kept falling. My phone buzzed, and I flinched, half hoping it was Mark, half dreading it. It was my sister Lisa texting, "You okay? Haven't heard from you today." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. I wanted to tell her everything, to spill the pain and let her make it better, like she always did when we were kids. But shame stopped me. How could I admit I'd been so blind, that my perfect marriage was a sham? I typed, "I'm fine," and hit send, but my hands shook as I did. I wasn't fine. I was falling apart. I stood up, wiping my face with my sleeve, and paced the room. My eyes landed on the washbox, still on his nightstand, the one I'd spent months saving for. I walked over and picked it up, the velvet soft under my fingers. I opened it, the silver watch gleaming inside, our initials carved on the back. I'd been so excited to give it to him, so sure it would make him smile. Now it felt like a joke. I snapped the box shut and threw it onto the bed, the thud echoing in the quiet. I needed to move, to do something, anything to stop the thoughts spinning in my head. I grabbed my coat and keys and headed out the door, not even sure where I was going. The evening air was cool, the street lights buzzing softly as I walked down the sidewalk. My neighborhood felt foreign, like I was seeing it for the first time. The happy couple walking their dog, the kids riding bikes. Did they know how fast it could all fall apart? I ended up at the park near our house, the one where Mark and I used to have picnics. I sat on a bench, the wood cold under me, and stared at the empty playground. The swing swayed slightly in the breeze, and I remembered us pushing each other, laughing until our sides hurt. How could he do this? How could he throw us away? The tears came again, quieter this time, but just as heavy. I let them fall, not caring if anyone saw. My phone buzzed again, and I almost ignored it. But it was a voicemail from Mark. My heart skipped, a mix of hope and anger. I pressed play, holding the phone to my ear. "Sarah," his voice said, low and shaky. "I'm so sorry. I messed up, okay? I didn't mean for this to happen. Please, let's talk. I'm at the hotel. I'll come home tomorrow, and we can figure this out. I love you." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made a jogger glance at me. Love. He didn't know what that word meant. I deleted the voicemail, my fingers trembling. I wasn't going to let him talk his way out of this. Not this time. But the pain didn't go away. It sat in my chest, heavy and raw, like a wound that wouldn't close. I looked up at the sky, the stars faint against the city glow. I thought about calling Lisa or my mum or anyone, but I couldn't face their pity. Not yet. I needed to feel this, to let it burn through me, because somewhere in the hurt, a spark was growing. Not just anger, but something stronger. I wasn't going to stay broken. Mark thought he could shatter my world and walk away, but he didn't know what I was capable of. I stood up, wiping my face one last time. The tears were done for now. I walked back toward the house, my steps steadier than before. The pain was still there, sharp and deep, but it wasn't all I had. I had myself, and that was enough to start. Mark had made his choice. Now it was my turn. I sat at the kitchen table, a single lamp casting a dim glow over the papers spread out in front of me. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like it's pressing down on you. It was late, past midnight, and the world outside was asleep. But I couldn't sleep, not after everything. Mark's voicemail kept playing in my head, his voice saying he was sorry, that he loved me. It made my skin crawl. He thought he could fix this with words, but I was done listening. The tears I'd cried in the park had dried up, and now something else was taking their place. A cold, sharp focus. I wasn't going to let him walk away thinking he'd won. The table was covered with evidence I'd gathered all day. Bank statements, printed emails, screenshots of Emily's posts. I'd even found a receipt for a necklace tucked in his desk drawer, dated 2 months ago. It wasn't for me. Each piece was a knife to the heart, but they also fueled me. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry, and that anger was turning into a plan. Mark had built his life around his company, his reputation, his perfect image. If he thought he could destroy me and keep all that, he was wrong. I sipped my coffee, cold now, but keeping me awake. My laptop was open, the screen showing Mark's company website. He was the golden boy of his tech startup, always bragging about deals and investors. I knew more than he thought. I'd helped him with presentations, overheard his calls, even suggested ideas he took credit for. His world was built on my support, and now I was going to use that against him. My phone buzzed, and I flinched. It was Lisa, my sister, texting. "Call me. Worried about you." I hadn't told her about Mark yet. I couldn't, not until I had this figured out. I typed back, "Tomorrow. Promise." Then I set the phone face down and pulled a notebook closer. I started writing, my pen moving fast, ideas spilling out. I wasn't just going to leave him. I was going to take something back. First, I needed information. I knew Mark's assistant, Jenna, liked me. She'd always been chatty, dropping hints about office gossip. I scribbled her name and a note. Ask about Chicago trips. Jenna would know if Mark had been meeting Emily on company time, maybe even using company money. If I could prove that, it would hit him where it hurt. His job, his pride. Next, I wrote investors. Mark's company was small, but growing, and he'd mentioned a big meeting next week with some important people. If I could find a way to show them he wasn't the perfect leader he pretended to be, they might pull their support. I didn't know how yet, but I'd figure it out. I had access to his work email. He'd never changed the password from when we set it up together. Sloppy Mark. Real sloppy. I leaned back, my heart racing. Not with fear, but with purpose. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about taking back my power. He'd made me feel small, stupid, like I didn't matter. But I was smarter than he thought. I tapped my pen on the notebook, thinking about Emily. She was part of this too. I didn't hate her, not yet, but I needed to know who she was. I opened my laptop again and searched her name, digging deeper than before. A LinkedIn profile popped up. Emily Carter, marketing consultant, worked with Mark's company on a project last year. That's how they met. My stomach twisted, but I kept going. She'd posted about a new contract recently. Was it with Mark's company? I wrote her name in the notebook, circling it. She wasn't innocent, but Mark was the one who'd betrayed me. The clock ticked past 1 a.m., but I didn't care. I felt alive, like I was waking up after being asleep for too long. I pulled up our joint bank account again, checking the charges. There was a pattern. Hotels, restaurants, all in Chicago, all when Mark said he was working late. I took screenshots, saving them in a folder labeled evidence. If I could show he was misusing funds, maybe even company funds, it would ruin him. He'd always cared more about his image than anything else, even me. I stood up, pacing the kitchen, my mind racing. I needed to be careful, smart. Mark couldn't know I was onto him. Not yet. I had to act normal, smile when he came back, pretend I was still the trusting wife. The thought made me sick, but I could do it. I'd done it for a year without knowing, hadn't I? Now I'd play the part until I was ready to strike. I stopped by the window, looking out at the dark street. A car drove by, its headlights cutting through the night. I imagined Mark in Chicago, laughing with Emily, thinking he'd gotten away with it. He had no idea what was coming. I turned back to the table, picking up my pen. I wrote one last note. Make him regret it. The words looked bold, final, like a promise to myself. I closed the notebook and turned off the lamp. The kitchen went dark, but I didn't feel lost anymore. I felt ready. Mark had shattered my trust, but he hadn't broken me. I was crafting something new in the shadows, a plan to take back everything he thought he'd stolen. And when I was done, he'd know exactly who he'd messed with. I stood in the coffee shop clutching my latte, the steam warming my hands. It was Monday morning, 2 days after Mark's confession, and the world felt sharper, like every sound and smell was turned up too loud. The chatter of people, the hiss of the espresso machine, the cinnamon scent in the air. It all grated on me. But I wasn't here to relax. I was here to meet Jenna, Mark's assistant, and light the first match of my plan. The pain from his betrayal still burned in my chest. But last night, hunched over my notebook, I'd found something new. Defiance. I wasn't going to let him ruin me. Not without a fight. Jenna walked in, her blonde ponytail bouncing, her smile bright as she waved. She didn't know why I'd asked to meet, just that I needed to talk. I'd always liked her. She was kind, chatty, and didn't treat me like just the boss's wife. But today, I needed more than her friendliness. I needed answers. "Hey, Sarah," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "You look great. Love that scarf." "Thanks," I said, forcing a smile. My scarf was red, bold, something to make me feel strong. I took a sip of my latte, steadying myself. "How's work? Mark keeping you busy?" She laughed, rolling her eyes. "Always. He's been all over the place lately, especially with those Chicago trips. I swear, he's gone more than he's in the office." My heart skipped, but I kept my face calm. "Chicago, huh? What's he doing there? He's always so vague about it." Jenna shrugged, stirring her coffee. "Client stuff, I think. He's been meeting with some marketing firm a lot. Oh, and there's this consultant, Emily something. She's always emailing him like all hours of the night." I gripped my cup tighter, my knuckles white. "Emily." There she was again. I leaned forward, keeping my voice light. "Emily? Is she new? I don't think Mark's mentioned her." Jenna frowned, like she was trying to remember. "Not new. She's been around for a year, maybe? She's nice, I guess, but super pushy. Always calling Mark directly instead of going through me. It's weird." "Weird how?" I asked, my pulse racing. I needed more, something solid. Jenna hesitated, glancing around like she was worried someone might hear. "Okay, don't tell Mark I said this, but I saw them at the office late one night, like really late. They weren't working. They were just talking, super close. I didn't think much of it then, but it felt off." My stomach twisted, but I nodded, like it was no big deal. "Sounds like Mark," I said, faking a laugh. "Always working late. Did you ever see anything else?" She bit her lip, then leaned in. "Once I saw an expense report he submitted. Dinner for 2, some fancy place in Chicago, charged to the company. I thought it was for a client, but the receipt had Emily's name on it. I didn't say anything, because, well, he's the boss. That was it. Proof. He was using company money to wine and dine her. My anger flared hot and bright, but I kept it hidden. "Thanks, Jenna," I said, smiling. "You're a lifesaver. I just like knowing what he's up to, you know?" "Totally," she said, relaxing. "You guys are so cute together. He's lucky to have you." I wanted to laugh, but I just nodded. Cute, sure. As Jenna talked about her weekend, my mind was racing. That expense report was a crack in Mark's perfect image, and I was going to pry it open. I already had his work email password. If I could find that report, or others like it, I could show the investors he was stealing from the company. His precious startup, his pride and joy, would crumble. We finished our coffee, and I hugged Jenna goodbye, promising to meet up again soon. As I walked out into the crisp morning air, I felt different, stronger. The pain was still there, sharp and raw, but it wasn't controlling me anymore. It was fuel. I pulled out my phone and texted Lisa. Need to talk. Can you come over tonight? I couldn't do this alone, and Lisa would understand. She'd always had my back. Back at home, I opened my laptop and logged into Mark's work email. My heart pounded as I scrolled through his inbox, searching for anything with Emily's name or Chicago. There it was, an email from her, sent last week, with a subject line. Can't wait for this weekend. I clicked it, my hands shaking. It was short, flirty, talking about a hotel and a dinner reservation. Attached was a photo of them at a bar, the same one I'd seen on her social media. My throat tightened, but I saved the email, the photo, everything. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. This was it. The spark. I wasn't just going to cry and let him move on. I was going to fight back, and I was going to win. Mark thought he could lie, cheat, and keep his perfect life. But I knew his secrets now, and I was going to use them. I closed the laptop and stood up, my hand steady for the first time in days. The defiance inside me wasn't just a spark anymore. It was a fire, and it was going to burn everything he cared about to the ground. I sat at my desk in the spare bedroom, the glow of my laptop screen the only light in the house. It was late, the clock ticking past 10 p.m., but I was wide awake. My notebook lay open, pages filled with notes from the past few days, emails, receipts, screenshots, all proof of Mark's lies. The pain of his betrayal still stung, but it was different now. It wasn't just hurt. It was power. I was ready to set the trap, and I was going to do it carefully, like a hunter who knows one wrong move could ruin everything. Lisa was sprawled on the couch nearby, sipping tea and flipping through her phone. I'd told her everything last night. Mark's affair with Emily, the Chicago trips, the company money he'd spent on her. She'd been furious, ready to storm his office and confront him. But I stopped her. Yelling wouldn't fix this. I needed to be smart, not loud. And now, with her help, I was putting the pieces in place. You sure about this, Sarah? Lisa asked, looking up from her phone. This is big. Like ruin his life big. I nodded, my eyes fixed on the laptop. He ruined mine first. I'm just making it fair. She grinned, a spark of pride in her eyes. That's my sister. Okay, what's the next step? I turned the laptop toward her, showing an email draft I'd been working on. It was addressed to Mark's biggest investor, Mr. Daniels, a man who'd always liked me at company parties. The email was polite, professional, but loaded with truth. Attached were copies of the expense reports Jenna had mentioned, ones I'd found in Mark's work email, showing dinners and hotel stays with Emily's name. I'd also included a screenshot of their flirty emails, just enough to raise questions without sounding petty. This, I said, tapping the screen. I send this to Daniels, and he'll start digging. Mark's been sloppy, using company money for his girlfriend. If Daniels pulls his funding, Mark's company is done. Lisa whistled, leaning closer. You're scary when you're mad. But won't Mark know it's you? Not right away, I said, my voice steady. I'm using a new email address, one he's never seen, and I'm not signing it. Just a concerned employee. He'll be too busy scrambling to point fingers. She nodded, but her face turned serious. What if he talks his way out of it? He's good at that. I thought about Mark's smooth voice, his easy charm, the way he'd lied to my face for a year. My jaw tightened. He can try, but I've got more. I found a contract in his email. Emily's firm is getting paid way too much for their work. It looks like a favor, maybe even a kickback. If I leak that to the board, he's finished. Lisa's eyes widened. You're playing dirty. I love it. I didn't smile. This wasn't about fun. It was about justice. I saved the email draft and opened another file. A calendar invite. Mark's big investor meeting was tomorrow, and I knew he'd be prepping all day. I'd overheard him on a call, bragging about how this deal would change everything. I was going to make sure it changed things, just not the way he wanted. I picked up my phone and texted Jenna, keeping it casual. Hey, any chance you can get me into the office tomorrow? Forgot something in Mark's office. My heart pounded as I hit send. If I could get into his office before the meeting, I could leave a printed copy of the expense reports on his desk, somewhere the investors might see. It was risky, but it would make them question him right when he needed their trust. Jenna replied fast, Sure thing, I'm there all day. Just swing by. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Step 1 was set. Sarah, Lisa said, sitting up. What if this backfires? What if they believe him over you? I looked at her, my hand steady now. They won't. I've got proof, and I'm not stopping until he loses everything he cares about. His company, his reputation, his pride. She stared at me, then nodded slowly. You're different, stronger. I like this, Sarah. I didn't feel stronger, not really. Inside, I was still raw, the pain of Mark's betrayal like a bruise that wouldn't fade. But I was done crying. Every step I took now was a step toward taking back what he'd stolen. My trust, my future, myself. I turned back to the laptop and added one more line to the email. Please investigate before the company suffers. It was calm, professional, but it would hit like a bomb. I stood up, stretching my arms. The house felt less heavy now, like I was taking it back too. Lisa, can you help me with one more thing? I asked. Anything? She said, setting her tea down. I need you to call Emily's firm tomorrow. Pretend you're a client. Ask about their rates. See if they slip up and mention Mark's. Company Lisa grinned. Sneaky. I'm in. I walked to the window, looking out at the dark street. Somewhere out there, Mark was probably with Emily, thinking he'd gotten away with it. But tomorrow, he'd walk into that meeting, confident and charming, and find my trap waiting. I wasn't just fighting back. I was building something new, something he couldn't touch. The spark of defiance I'd felt was now aflame, and I was ready to let it burn. I stood outside Mark's office building, my breath visible in the chilly morning air. The glass doors gleamed under the sun, reflecting the city skyline. But all I could feel was the cold resolve settling in my chest. Today was the day. The investor meeting was in an hour, and I'd made sure everything was in place. The email to Mr. Daniels, Mark's biggest investor, was sent last night from my anonymous account, packed with proof of Mark's misuse of company funds. The printed expense reports were tucked in my bag, ready to be slipped onto his desk. My plan was set, and now it was time to face him. I wasn't the broken woman he'd left behind. I was ice, calm, sharp, unbreakable. I pushed through the doors, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The lobby was busy, people rushing with coffee cups and briefcases, but I kept my eyes forward. Jenna had promised to get me into Mark's office, and I trusted her. My phone buzzed. Lisa texting, "You got this." Make him sweat. I smiled just a little and slipped the phone into my pocket. Lisa's call to Emily's firm yesterday had confirmed my suspicions. Their contract with Mark's company was overpriced. A favor for his girlfriend. Another nail in his coffin. Jenna met me at the reception desk, her face lighting up. "Sarah, you made it. Come on. Mark's in a prep meeting, so his office is clear." "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice steady. My heart was pounding, but I wouldn't let it show. We took the elevator to the top floor, the hum of it filling the silence. Jenna chatted about work, oblivious to the storm inside me. When the doors opened, I followed her down the hall to Mark's corner office. The door was ajar, his nameplate glinting in the light. My stomach twisted, but I pushed it down. No turning back now. "I'll be at my desk," Jenna said, pointing down the hall. "Take your time." I nodded and stepped inside, closing the door behind me. Mark's office smelled like him. Coffee and that cologne I used to love. His desk was neat, papers stacked, a photo of us from our wedding still in its frame. I stared at it, my chest tightening. How could he keep that there while he was with her? I shook my head, focusing. I pulled the expense reports from my bag and placed them on his desk, half hidden under a folder. Not obvious, but easy enough for an investor to notice. Let them ask questions. Let him squirm. The door swung open and I froze. Mark stood there. His tie loosened, a coffee cup in his hand. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" My heart raced, but I straightened, meeting his gaze. "I needed to see you," I said, my voice cold, like I'd practiced in the mirror. "We need to talk." He set his cup down, his face a mix of guilt and confusion. "I thought you wanted me out. You said—" I know what I said. I stepped closer, my hands steady at my sides. "But I'm not done with you yet, Mark." He frowned, leaning against the desk, right where I'd left the papers. "What's this about? If it's about Emily, I told you I'll end it. I messed up. But we can fix this." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Fix it? You lied to me for a year. You used company money to take her to hotels, buy her jewelry. You thought I wouldn't find out." His face went pale, his hand gripping the desk. "What are you talking about? How do you—" "I know everything." I cut him off, stepping closer. "The emails, the receipts, the trips. I know about Emily's contract, how you overpaid her firm to keep her close. You're not as smart as you think, Mark." He stared at me, his mouth opening, then closing. "Sarah, you're wrong. It's not like that. Stop lying." My voice rose, but I caught myself lowering it. "I've seen the proof, and so will everyone else. Your investors, your board, they're going to know what you've done." His eyes darted to the desk, like he sensed the trap but couldn't see it. "What did you do?" he asked, his voice low, almost a growl. I smiled, cold and steady. "You'll find out soon. You thought you could break me and walk away, but I'm not the one who's going to fall." He stepped toward me, his face twisting with panic. "Sarah, please, don't do this. I'll lose everything." "Good," I said, my voice like ice. "You should have thought of that before you betrayed me." He reached for my arm, but I pulled back, glaring. "Don't touch me. You don't get to touch me ever again." The air between us crackled, heavy with everything unsaid. His phone buzzed on the desk, and I saw the screen light up. Emily's name. My stomach churned, but I didn't flinch. "Answer it," I said. "Tell her you're done. Or don't. It won't matter soon." "Sarah, wait," he said, his voice desperate. "We can talk this out. Just give me a chance." I turned toward the door, my hand on the handle. "You had your chance, Mark. You chose her. Now you live with it." I walked out, my heart pounding but my head high. The hallway blurred as I moved, the sound of my heels echoing. Behind me, I heard him call my name, but I didn't look back. The trap was set, and he was already caught. The investors would see the papers, get the email, ask questions he couldn't answer. I'd made sure of it. The spark of defiance I'd felt was now ablaze, and I was ready to watch it burn him down. I stood in the hallway, outside the boardroom, my heart pounding, but my face calm. The glass walls let me see shadows moving inside. Mark, his investors, his team, all gathered for the big meeting. I'd slipped the expense reports onto his desk yesterday, and the anonymous email to Mr. Daniels, the lead investor, had gone out right after I left his office. My trap was set, but today was different. Today, I had a secret he'd never see coming, one that would hit harder than any email or receipt. I adjusted my jacket, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. The room went quiet as I walked in. Mark stood at the front, mid-sentence, a projector screen behind him glowing with charts. His eyes locked on me, wide with shock, then narrowed. "Sarah?" he said, his voice tight. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, slow and steady, letting the silence stretch. The investors, 5 men and 2 women in sharp suits, turned in their chairs, looking between me and Mark. Mr. Daniels, grey-haired and serious, raised an eyebrow. "Is this part of the presentation, Mark?" he asked, his tone curious but sharp. "No," Mark said quickly, stepping forward. "She's my wife. This isn't the place, Sarah. Let's talk outside." "I'm not here to talk," I said, my voice clear, cutting through his. I held up a folder, plain and black, but heavy with the truth. "I'm here to share something you all need to know." Mark's face paled. He took a step toward me, but I held up a hand, stopping him. "Stay where you are, Mark. This won't take long." The investors exchanged glances. A woman with short red hair leaned forward. "What's this about, Mrs. Thompson?" I opened the folder, pulling out a single sheet, a contract between Mark's company and Emily's marketing firm. I'd found it late last night, buried in his email trash folder. It wasn't just overpriced. It was signed by Mark without board approval, a clear violation of company rules. But that wasn't the secret. I held it up, letting them see the numbers, the dates, Emily's name. "Mark's been making decisions behind your back," I said, keeping my eyes on the investors. "This contract is for a marketing firm run by Emily Carter. He's been paying her triple the market rate for a year, using company funds. No bids, no approval, just his signature." The room erupted in murmurs. Mr. Daniels leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Is this true, Mark?" Mark's jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists. "It's not what it looks like. Sarah, you don't understand how this works." "I understand perfectly," I cut in, my voice like ice. "You've been funneling money to your girlfriend. Dinners, hotels, jewelry. all on the company card. I have the receipts. The murmurs grew louder. A man in a blue suit pulled out his phone, like he was checking something. Mark's face turned red, his eyes darting to the folder in my hand. "You're out of line," he snapped. "This is personal, not business." "Personal?" I laughed, sharp and cold. "You made it business when you used their money to cheat on me." I turned to the investors, holding up another paper. A bank statement I'd found, showing transfers to an account linked to Emily. "This is your money, not his. He's been stealing from you to keep her happy." Mr. Daniels stood, his face hard. "Mark, explain this. Now." Mark opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He looked at me, his eyes pleading, then angry. "Sarah, why are you doing this?" Here it was. The moment. I reached into the folder and pulled out the secret, the one I'd found just hours ago, buried in a deleted email chain. A letter, written by Mark to Emily, dated last month. I held it up, my hand steady. "Because you didn't just betray me," I said. "You plan to sell your shares to her firm, behind the board's back. You were going to cash out and leave the company to crash." The room went dead silent. Mark's face froze, his mouth half open. The investors stared at the letter, then at him. Mr. Daniels snatched it from my hand, his eyes scanning the words. "Is this real?" he demanded. It's not final," Mark stammered. "I was just exploring options." "Options?" I said, stepping closer. "You were going to run off with her and leave everyone here to clean up your mess. I trusted you, Mark. They trusted you. And you lied to us all." The red-haired woman stood, her voice sharp. "We need to see everything. Every email, every contract. Now." Mark's shoulders slumped, his confidence gone. He looked at me, his eyes desperate. "Sarah, please, don't do this." I met his gaze, my heart pounding but my voice calm. "You did this to yourself." Mr. Daniels turned to the others. "This meeting's over. Mark, you're suspended until we investigate. Mrs. Thompson, we'll need your evidence." I nodded, handing over the folder. "It's all there." As the investors filed out, whispering and glancing at Mark, he sank into a chair, his face buried in his hands. I stood there, watching him, the man who'd shattered my world. The pain was still there, deep and raw, but it didn't own me anymore. I'd walked into this room with a secret he never saw coming, and I'd turned his world upside down. I turned and walked out, my head high, the weight of my anger lighter than it had been in days. This wasn't the end, but it was close, and I was ready for what came next. I stood in the corner of the conference room, my arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold. The air was thick with tension, like a storm about to break. Mark sat at the head of the long table, his face pale, his tie loose around his neck. The investors, all 7 of them, were gathered around, their voices sharp and angry. Papers were scattered across the table. My papers, the ones I'd given them yesterday, with proof of Mark's lies. Expense, reports, emails, the secret letter about selling his shares to Emily's firm. My trap had worked. And now Mark's perfect little empire was falling apart right in front of him. Mr. Daniels, the lead investor, stood up, slamming a folder down. "Mark, you've got 1 minute to explain why we shouldn't pull every cent from this company right now." Mark's eyes darted around, like a trapped animal. He ran a hand through his hair, his voice shaky. "Look, I messed up, okay? Some of those expenses were personal, but I was going to pay them back. I swear, pay them back? The red-haired woman, Miss Carter, snapped. She held up one of my screenshots. An email from Mark to Emily promising her a bigger contract. You funneled company money to your girlfriend. And this letter, you were planning to sell your shares and tank the company. Do you think we're idiots? The room erupted in voices, everyone talking over each other. Mark's face turned red, his hands gripping the table. That's not true, he said, his voice cracking. I wasn't going to sell. It was just a draft, an idea. Sarah blew this out of proportion. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the floor. All eyes turned to me. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady, cold. Blew it out of proportion? You lied to me for a year, Mark. You lied to them too. You used their money to cheat, to build your little fantasy with Emily. And you thought you could walk away rich. Mark's jaw dropped, his eyes wide with panic. Sarah, stop. This isn't the place. It's exactly the place. I cut him off, my voice like a blade. I turned to the investors, holding up another paper, a bank transfer showing company funds going to Emily's account. He didn't just betray me, he betrayed all of you. He thought he could play you and get away with it. Mr. Daniels snatched the paper, his face darkening as he read it. This is unacceptable, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Mark, you're done. We're calling an emergency board meeting. Tomorrow. You're out as CEO, effective now. No, Mark shouted, standing so fast his chair tipped over. It hit the floor with a loud thud. You can't do this. This is my company. I built it. You built it on our money, Miss Carter said, her eyes narrowing. And you threw it away for what? A fling? You're lucky we're not suing you. Mark's hands shook, his eyes wild. He turned to me, his voice desperate. Sarah, please. Tell them it's not true. Tell them you made a mistake. I laughed, sharp and bitter. A mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you. You thought you could break me and keep your perfect life. Look around, Mark. This is what happens when you lie. The investors nodded, some scribbling notes, others whispering to each other. A man in a grey suit stood up. We're pulling our funding unless you step down. The board will vote, but it's over. You've lost our trust. Mark sank back into his chair, his face crumpling. He looked smaller, like the confident man I'd married was gone. You don't understand, he mumbled, almost to himself. I was going to fix it. There's no fixing this, I said, stepping closer. My voice was calm, but inside my heart was racing. You made your choices. Now you live with them. The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, final. Mr. Daniels cleared his throat. Mrs. Thompson, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll need your help with the investigation. Can you provide more documents? Everything's in the folder, I said, nodding to the stack on the table. Emails, receipts, contracts. It's all there. He nodded, his face grim. We'll take it from here. Mark, you need to leave. Now. Mark looked up, his eyes glassy, like he couldn't believe it was happening. He grabbed his jacket, his movement slow, like he was in a daze. He glanced at me, his mouth opening, but no words came out. For a moment, I saw the man I used to love, the one who'd made me laugh, who'd promised me forever. But that man was gone, buried under a year of lies. He walked out, his shoulders slumped, the door clicking shut behind him. The investors started talking again, planning next steps, but I barely heard them. I felt light, like a weight had lifted. The pain was still there, deep and raw, but it didn't control me anymore. I'd watched his empire crumble, piece by piece, just like he'd crumbled my trust. And I'd done it with nothing but the truth. I turned to leave, my head high. Mr. Daniels called after me, "Mrs. Thompson, we'll be in touch." I nodded but kept walking. The hallway stretched out before me, bright and open. Mark thought he could take everything from me, but he was wrong. I'd taken something back, my strength, my voice. And I wasn't done yet. I sat on the edge of my bed, the house so quiet I could hear the hum of the fridge downstairs. It was the day after the boardroom showdown, and the memory of Mark's face, pale, broken, as his investors turned on him, kept replaying in my mind. His company, his pride was slipping away, and I'd made it happen. The folder of evidence I'd given them, emails, receipts, that secret letter about selling his shares, had done its job. But now, with the chaos I'd caused settling like dust, I felt stuck. The anger that had driven me was fading, and a new question was clawing at me. What now? What did I want from this? My phone buzzed on the nightstand, Lisa's name lighting up the screen. I answered, my voice tired. "Hey, Sarah, you okay?" She asked, her tone soft but worried. "You haven't texted since yesterday. How'd it go?" I leaned back against the headboard, staring at the ceiling. It worked. They suspended him. The investors are pulling funding unless he's gone for good. His company's done. Lisa let out a low whistle. "You really did it. I'm proud of you, but how do you feel?" I didn't answer right away. How did I feel? Part of me felt strong, like I'd taken back something Mark had stolen. But another part, the part that remembered our wedding, our late-night laughs, felt empty. "I don't know," I said finally. "I thought this would fix everything, but it's messy." "Messy's okay," Lisa said. "You don't have to have it all figured out. What do you want now?" That was the question. I stood up, pacing the room. My eyes landed on the watch box I'd given Mark for our anniversary, still on his nightstand. I hadn't touched it since he left. I walked over, picked it up, and opened it. The silver watch gleamed, our initials carved on the back. I'd saved for months to buy it, thinking it would make him smile. Now it just made my chest ache. "I want to move on," I said, gripping the phone. "I don't want to be stuck in this hurt, but I don't know how." "Then let's figure it out," Lisa said. "Come over. We'll talk, eat junk food, whatever you need. You don't have to do this alone." I smiled. A small one, but real. "Okay, I'll be there soon." I hung up and set the watch box down, closing it for good. I couldn't keep holding on to the past. Mark had made his choices, and now I had to make mine. I grabbed my coat and keys, but before I left, I opened my laptop. There was one more thing I needed to do. I pulled up my email and started typing a message to Mr. Daniels, the lead investor. I thanked him for taking my evidence seriously and offered to help with their investigation. But I added something else. A suggestion. I knew Mark's company better than most. His systems, his clients, his ideas, many of which came from me. If they needed someone to step in, to keep things running while they rebuilt, I could do it. I hit send, my heart racing. It was a long shot, but it felt right. I wasn't just tearing Mark down. I was building something for myself. I drove to Lisa's apartment, the city lights blurring past. My mind kept turning, weighing my choices. I could walk away, start fresh somewhere new, leave Mark and his mess behind. Or I could stay, take control, show the world I was more than his wife, more than his victim. Both paths scared me, but they also felt alive, like doors I'd never noticed before. Lisa opened her door before I could knock, pulling me into a hug. "You look like you're carrying the world," she said, leading me inside. Her place smelled like pizza, and a box was open on the coffee table. "Sit, eat, talk." I sank onto her couch, grabbing a slice. "I don't know what to do next," I admitted, my voice low. "I got him back. His company's falling apart, but I'm still me. I don't know who that is without him." Lisa sat next to me, her eyes soft. "You're Sarah. You're smart, tough, and way stronger than you think. You don't need him to figure out who you are. You already showed that." I chewed slowly, her words sinking in. "I sent an email to the investors," I said. "Told them I could help run the company. I know it sounds crazy, but I helped Mark build it. I know how it works." Lisa's eyes widened, then she grinned. "That's not crazy. That's badass. You'd be taking his world and making it yours." I nodded, a spark of excitement cutting through the fog in my chest. Maybe. But what if I fail? What if they don't take me seriously? "Then you try something else," she said, shrugging. "You're not stuck, Sarah. You've got choices now. That's what this was all about, right? Taking back your power." I looked at her, my sister, who'd always believed in me, even when I didn't. She was right. The chaos Mark left behind wasn't just his ruin. It was my chance. I could walk away, or I could step into the mess and make something new. I set the pizza down, my hand steady. "I'm going to do it," I said. "I'm going to fight for the company. Not for him, but for me." Lisa raised her soda can, grinning. "To Sarah, the new boss." I laughed, clinking my can against hers. The pain was still there, but it wasn't all I had. I had a path, a choice. And for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. Mark's empire was crumbling, but mine was just beginning. I stood in the boardroom, sunlight streaming through the tall windows, catching the polished wood of the conference table. It was a week after I'd exposed Mark's lies. His affair, the stolen company money. His plan to sell his shares and run. The investors had voted him out, and his startup, the one he'd built with my ideas and their cash, was in chaos. But I wasn't here to watch it burn. I was here to rebuild it. My hands shook as I set my laptop on the table, but my voice was steady. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. Mr. Daniels, the lead investor, sat at the head of the table, his grey eyes studying me. The other investors, 6 of them, were scattered around, some flipping through the folder I'd given them, my proposal to step in as interim CEO. I'd spent days writing it, laying out how I'd stabilize the company, keep clients, and fix Mark's mess. I knew the business inside out, from the systems I'd helped design to the deals I'd overheard him plan. I wasn't just Mark's wife anymore. I was Sarah, and I was ready. "Mrs. Thompson," Mr. Daniels said, leaning forward, "you've made a bold case. But why should we trust you to run this company? You're not an executive. You're his wife." I took a deep breath, meeting his gaze. "I'm not just his wife. I was there when this company started. I helped Mark with pitches, budgets, even client meetings when he was too busy. I know every part of this business, and I've seen where he went wrong. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for a chance to prove I can do this. Miss Carter, the red-haired investor, nodded slowly. You've got guts, I'll give you that. Bringing us those documents took courage. But running a company isn't the same as exposing a scandal. I know, I said, my voice firm. That's why my plan focuses on what's real, keeping clients happy, fixing the budget, being honest with you. Mark lied to everyone. I won't. I've got no secrets to hide. The room went quiet, investors exchanging looks. My heart pounded, but I kept my face calm, my hands steady on the table. I'd spent too long feeling small, betrayed by Mark's affair with Emily, crushed by his lies. But that pain had pushed me here, to this moment, standing taller than I ever had. Mr. Daniels tapped his pen on the table. You're asking us to take a big risk. If you fail, the company could collapse. If I don't try, it will collapse, I said. You've seen the numbers. Clients are nervous, and the staff is rattled. I can talk to them, rebuild trust. I know what this company can be, and I'm not afraid to work for it. A man in a blue suit leaned forward. What about Mark? He's still got shares. He could fight this. I smiled just a little. He won't. I spoke to his lawyer yesterday. He's selling his shares to cover his debts. He's out of the picture. The investors murmured, surprised. I didn't tell them how I'd found that out. Through Lisa, who'd called Mark's lawyer, pretending to be a reporter. It was a small victory, but it felt good. Mark was scrambling, trying to save himself, but I was steps ahead. Miss Carter leaned back, crossing her arms. I like you, Sarah. You're smart and you've got fire. But this is a tough job. Are you sure you're ready? I thought about the nights I'd spent crying, the days I'd spent digging through Mark's emails, the moment I'd faced him in his office with ice in my veins. Every step had led me here, to a choice I'd made to rise, not fall. I'm ready, I said. I've already lost everything once. I know how to build from nothing. Mr. Daniels looked around the table, then back at me. We'll vote tomorrow. But I'll be honest, you've made a strong case. Stay ready. I nodded, my chest tight with hope and nerves. Thank you, I will. As I packed up my laptop, the investors filed out, their voices low, discussing me, the company, the future. I caught Miss Carter's eye, and she gave me a small nod, like she was rooting for me. I walked out of the boardroom, my heels clicking on the floor, each step feeling lighter than the last. Outside, Lisa was waiting in her car, her grin wide when she saw me. How'd it go? She asked as I slid into the passenger seat. They're voting tomorrow, I said, buckling my seatbelt. But I think I've got a shot. She laughed, starting the engine. A shot? Sarah, you're about to take over his company. That's not a shot. That's a knockout. I smiled, looking out the window at the city rushing by. The pain of Mark's betrayal was still there. A dull ache in my chest, but it didn't define me anymore. I'd torn down his empire, not out of hate, but to make room for mine. I didn't know if the investors would choose me, but I knew one thing. I wasn't the woman Mark had left behind. I was unstoppable, rising from the ashes of his lies. And no matter what came next, I was ready to fight for my future.